Batten down the hatches and grab your paintbrushes, for this is the day that we paint the four-armed menace, the Admiral, the one and only EJ-1M. This Soulborg pirate is my favorite sculpt from Age of Annihilation. I mean, who doesn't love a multi-armed robot with an excessive amount of firepower? This unit plays really well with the newly released pirates, and even has some synergy with some classic Soulborg units as well. EJ is a really fun unit to paint, and I adore its color scheme. It has some really unique color compositions, and it really stands out from the other units inside the box. Now, without further ado, let's stop our lollygagging and let's paint Admiral EJ-1M. So starting off, make sure the figure is fully primed in black. I really like black primer for metallics as it provides just kind of natural looking metals where the shadows are already filled in. Next up, we're going to grab some gunmetal gray and start applying it to the body, arms, and guns of the figure. You want to make sure you hit all the angles and crevices, just going around and taking your time, but don't worry if you get the paint onto any of their parts. It's not the end of the world. We can always cover that up as we'll be kind of building the colors from the innermost part to the outermost part. This is a great model to paint just because it has really large, wide surface areas. Some of the other AOA models have a bit more detail you got to pay more attention to, but this is honestly just like a fun model. A lot of room to paint and move around with. If you notice, I'm kind of using like almost like a dry brush method. My paints and my brush both have a bit of moisture in them to help with the flow of the paint, but I'm trying to avoid the recesses and kind of deep crevices of the figure. You know, notice on the gun and the body plates specifically. So I can have that natural line of darkness that separates the various pieces and kind of simulates shadow. And take your time on this. This is kind of the most prominent feature, so you want a good, nice, solid coat of coverage on the whole of EJ. Alright, and after the metallics have all been applied, we're going to continue our base coat and apply the purple to the cape. This is a really prominent purple. I'm kind of using the same color mixture as I used for Zenithrax actually, to kind of provide some visual symmetry between the units. First, you want to grab some alien purple and just apply it nice, long, even strokes following the flow of the cape. This is the base layer, so you want some pretty solid coverage, and this may take a layer or two. Thankfully, Army Painter has pretty good coverage with their new Fanatic line for their purples. Actually, they're probably my favorite parts of the Army Painter, so your coverage should be pretty good if you're following along directly with this. If you notice, my paint is slightly watered down. It's not to the point where it's runny, but where it just kind of flows very evenly off the brush onto the cape. And you want to pay special attention to the kind of folds around the neck and the inner crevices next to the body, as those are easy spots to make and they will kind of detract from the kind of visual spectacle of the figure. Alright, continuing on, we are adding a red called Werven Fury, which is a nice cool red to the model. You may be asking yourself like, hey, this doesn't match the bright red of EJ. Don't worry, we're going to work our way up. This is a kind of a interesting way to add some visual distinction. The cool red matches a lot better with the purple as kind of a base coat, and just trust me, we're gonna brighten this up in a bit. You'll want to hit the shoulder pads and the kneecaps and just the various little kind of small details. This in the base coat is where you want to pay probably the most attention. It was care just so you don't kind of get into the silver, but always you can level that up and start over if you make a mistake. Keep your paints kind of thinner for this, so you want a nice solid coat, but if you have a little bit of that metallic sheen shine through, it is not the end of the world because it kind of adds to the overall look of the figure. So now we're going to start working on the leathers, fill those in. I wanted to make the uppermost bandoliers and straps a bit darker than the pants, so I took some oak brown and mixed that about 2-to-1 with just matte black to make kind of a dark brown, and just went along and filled in the top straps. For the pants, I just used solid leather brown and filled those in. And when painting the pants, you just want to make sure you turn them figure all the way around. Again, hitting all the corners and angles, as this is kind of the spot where it's really easy to miss certain aspects and kind of leave big black patches. Not the end of the world, but certainly your model will look more complete and solid if you give a nice, complete coat, even in the little nooks and crannies you may think you don't see. After that, we're going to work on the metallics. For the details, I took some gritty gold and applied that to little canisters on the straps and the belt buckles. You want to use a small detail brush and take your time kind of outlining it. I can use simple lines. It's better to have your brush be a bit more heavy than thin, as you just want some solid coverage. If you notice on the bandolier, I am trying to avoid the kind of recesses between each canister just to kind of give it some more of that shading we were talking about. And while we're finishing up the base layer, I used a nice turquoise, a Hydra turquoise, to fill in the canister on EJ's belt. So after the base layer has been applied, we're going to want to apply a dark wash over the whole model to really fill in those shadows that we missed and kind of just blend all the colors, bring down the vibrancy just a bit. So you're going to take some dark tone from Army Painter or your favorite wash of choice. Make sure it's very well shaken up, and I typically recommend not putting this onto your wet palette, as the washes do have a tendency to flow and mix with other paints and kind of just makes a big mess. You're going to want to use a big-bodied brush, kind of a brush with a wide head. That's not your best brush out there because washes do have a tendency to kind of go up to the edge of the brush and kind of ruin the brush itself if the paint gets in there. And you just want to evenly apply it over all the model. Now after the wash is dried, I recommend that you take a dry brush and apply a bright metal to the kind of the uppermost raised surfaces, like the chrome dome and the outer tips of the guns. If you have an astute eye, you may notice I finished the rest of the model before I did this, and that's because I forgot. I'm a mere mortal. It's definitely going to be a lot easier if you do it before the rest of the model is layered up and has alternate colors on it. That way, if you do make a mistake, you just apply the simple base coat layer back onto it. I recommend that you take a fine tip brush and fill in the space, kind of the circular space for the eyes. We'll be kind of covering this up later, but it sets a good foundation. We're going to work on adding some highlights to EJ-1M. Although the classic figures can commonly have multi-tone paint jobs, being kind of that they're pre-painted, and this is really a chance for your figure to stand out. Highlights give contrast, which allows the brain to kind of process the image as separate shapes and structures. So we're going to use a couple techniques for these red body plate pieces. First, we're going to get some pure red. I mentioned earlier that we're going to brighten this up. Grab some bright red and use the best brush you have, one with the most consistent point. And then you're going to use a slightly thinned down mixture of paint and work on focusing on the edges. So I used two highlighting techniques for EJ. First, I did something called edge highlighting. Essentially, I focused on the raised edges and imagined where the light was hitting and outlined that. When you do edge highlighting, it helps you use the topmost edge of your brush, kind of from the side, and focus on the raised corners where you want to highlight the brighter area. Notice on the wristbands, I'm kind of focusing on the parts that are raised up more and avoiding the recesses and dark places. With highlights, less is more. If everything's a highlight, then nothing's a highlight. In addition to edge highlighting, I also combine it with another technique called stippling. Stippling is where you take your brush and apply a bunch of small dots to create kind of a textured blend from one color to the next. If you notice on the legs and the kind of the elbows, I wanted a bit more of a distressed look. These small dots made EJ not only look more battle-worn, but also more effectively blended the darker red to this brighter red. With stippling, you want to use more of the pointed part of your brush, and be sure not to overdo this as well, as if you do too much stippling, it essentially becomes just an elaborate dry brush. There are many ways to color an eye. I was feeling a bit lazy, so I decided to use a bit of speed paint just to fill in the eye. I used bright red and carefully applied it, making sure it just stays in that space. Nice and easy. And very similar to the highlights we just applied to the red parts of EJ, we're going to take some bright gold and buff up the little golden canisters and ammo belts he has on his body. For the belt, I wanted to stipple it, just again to give it that rough look. And for the canisters, you just want to very carefully kind of trace the innermost curve to give it a bit of dimension. Okay, we're on our last part now. I just went through and brightened up the area where the shade settled in, and I grabbed some cultist purple, which is just a slightly brighter purple than the original alien purple, and follow the length of the raged creases on the fabric, making sure to pay special attention to the neck and areas like that. I unfortunately don't have footage of this, but if you wanted to take this further, you can use a bit of magenta, like a Mage Cast magenta, and mix that in with the cultist purple, thin it down and really buff it up the color to be more bright and vibrant as you so choose. And here you have it, EJ-1M. This is a great figure just to mess around with texture, highlights, and even kind of experiment with how you want these more vibrant colors to kind of flow together. The colors I used in this video, I feel like really kind of create a really great blend while still looking like the original, but feel free to kind of make it your own, you know, change the color of the cape or even the silver body himself. That's the beauty of painting, is you can always change whatever steps you like. And all in all, you could say that painting this awesome Solborg is an Admiral endeavor. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Heroscape content. More tutorials are definitely in the works. If you have any questions about the process, be sure to let me know. Love to get back to you on that. And huge shout out to Renegade for giving me these figures to provide to the community early. Super appreciative of them. If you want to get some of these awesome Heroscape figures of your own, I am an affiliate. Check out the link in the description. You can support the channel at no additional cost to you. And lastly, if you want to see the debut of this figure being played, you can check out a fellow content creator who I sent this figure to be tested and played with, named Derek. A link right here. It's a fun casual match to definitely watch and kind of see the full potential of this figure and some other figures I painted. You all take care.